Lake County Solid Waste Authority Workshop to order. It's Thursday, January the 15th. All right, our invocation will be by Mr. Berry, and I'll be in charge of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray.
Oh, gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for another beautiful day. Thank you for this time that we can come out and take care of the business for the people of Overy County. Lord, you know we do it what's right, regardless of what they say on the news, say in the street. You know where we stand and you know how our hearts are. We want to make this a better place for people to live, play, and work once this project's over with. And we just ask you to bless each and every one of us here. Give us the right mind, the right thoughts, all the energy we need to put into it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I would remind you the purpose of this meeting is to discuss leachate storage, methane utilization, what we're required to do for our new source performance standards, and our equipment utilization. We will discuss the entrance road and record storage subjects at our regular meeting later this month. And sometime next month, we will have a special workshop on the landfill expansion project. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's approved. All right. Ms. Stephanie, I understand that you're leading us off today.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start off by talking about the leachate storage treatment option. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background information. We do have two leachate storage tanks on our site. One we call tank one is our older tank, and it's about 25 feet tall, roughly 36 feet in diameter, and holds about 190,000 gallons of liquid. Tank number two, which is a few years newer than that one, is 35 feet tall, 36 feet in diameter, and holds roughly 260,000 gallons. They're both glass-lined steel tanks. And the containment area that they're placed in has a 60 mil HDPE liner. In the event there were a spill or something like that, we could collect it and put it back up in the tank. And we do direct discharge to our POTW, which is Grand Strand Water and Sewer, at a rate of no more than 60,000 gallons a day. So these tanks were installed in early to mid-90s. And back in 2022, we did a complete rehabilitation project where we went through both of the tanks, made necessary repairs to them. We had to replace some things, such as some of the steel plate repairs on the sidewalls. Tank interiors were inspected and cleaned thoroughly. All surface scratches and glass issues were addressed with factory materials. We did some work on the pumps and everything else, but at that time, we had budgeted for that project $575,000. So that got our tanks recertified. We had NS Carolina, which is the company that actually manufactured and installed the tanks back in the 90s, come. And Ed Yarborough was the person that headed that up back in the 90s, and he actually was on site for this. And he was in complete amazement at how long these tanks have lasted. He said because they have way outlasted their lifespan. But that in part, I think, is because we're very careful about the materials that we take in, and we do not take sludges or anything like that. So, you know, our leachate is pretty consistent and has been all this time. But in August of 2025, we had to get another company come in to repair a leak. And that was just a little over $23,000. a few weeks later, we found 2 more weeps. So this is kind of where we're going. We're, you know, we've had it inspected, it's been confirmed that they've outlasted their lifespan. So we need to really look at doing a replacement tank that will take the place of this smallest one. Once we get it constructed, we'll take the smallest one out of commission. And the additional storage will be good as well because we're only allowed to discharge 60,000 gallons a day. So, and an estimated budget for this tank construction is about 5.2 million.
This would be, the new tank would be adjacent to the existing tanks?
We're thinking it would be probably behind it, between it and pond area, is that correct, Craig? Yeah. So we would extend that lined area out and firm it up, and then place the new tank in that area.
Kind of behind the two that's there now.
Behind the two that are there now. And how long would it take to complete that project?
9 months.
9 months?
9 months? Okay.
If they, be sure they understand that the leakage was inside that
Yes.
lined area and it
Yeah.
didn't run off in the water.
Didn't go into the waterway
No,
or into
no.
any?
It's contained, like I said, that whole area is lined with that 60 mil liner, so it's contained in there.
Okay.
5.2 billion include the expansion of the tank along?
It's
So it's a turnkey job
turnkey
for that
job.
price,
Right.
is what they hope, okay.
And do you get checks these?
They look at our tanks every month when they do the inspection, just to make sure things are in order and they don't see anything.
Right. So it passes their inspection
Yes, ma'am.
with no concern?
Yeah, we've not had any problems.
That's a question.
Yes, sir.
I assume you would probably do another 60 mil line for the new part.
Yes, sir.
How would you connect the two, the old one and the new ones?
Have you welded kind of like a landfill liner? I'll let Craig answer that because he's the expert on that.
Craig Porter, Garrett Ward. What we would do is adjacent to the current tank farm, we would have a separate tank farm with a large outer ring, which would be your secondary containment, with multiple tanks sitting within the ring, is a typical arrangement for something like this. So in a sense, we would not be extending our berm for secondary containment, we'd be providing a new structure altogether. And then we'd have either two tanks immediately with space for a third, most likely, within that larger secondary containment ring. Does that answer your question?
What is the alternative? Is there some other way to deal with leachate rather than store it?
There are other alternatives, such as an evaporator or some other method, wastewater treatment facility, recirculation, which I don't think we would ever want to do because our waste is wet and that would be too much. So those are other options that we could look at if we weren't able to discharge to our POTW.
If I think some of our group went to Greenville, they have an evaporator, they got a private farm that's run 24 hours a day. So we're looking at putting some information for the survey for that, but we need to take another look at it and get a better understanding for the budget process.
I would assume that we still have to store the leachate for a period of time before it even evaporates, so.
Yes, sir, we would.
Do you have any idea what the cost of the evaporation process is?
We had gotten some information from Heartland Technologies, which I think is the same company that Greenville uses. And based off of the way they do it, you could do it 2 different ways. They would do the construction of the evaporator, and either they would be able to run it around the clock, or you would have to hire staff that would run it around the clock. But you would pay for the construction, which is what, roughly 7 to 8 million, and then there would be a monthly fee if they operate the facility. So if they operate it, they maintain it, they do all of the maintenance, they do all of the repairing, they treat it like it's their own facility.
And how much would a treatment facility cost?
Wastewater treatment facility, probably,
Depends on how many gallons you're gonna process through it, and if
Yeah.
you design it for just what your needs are, or if you set it up so that you could bring in other wastewater to treat as a way to offset some of your costs, I mean,
Do you have a ballpark figure? I wouldn't want to bring anybody else's in, but I would want to be able to expand it, but at what we're doing today, do you have any idea?
There was one in North Carolina built for 30 million.
30. Was that reverse osmosis?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was reverse osmosis. And it was somewhat blessed today that we're able to send so much to Granite Trail Water. So,
Right.
of course, they charge us for it, pay for it. But when you read the stories about people having them loaded in a tanker and take it someplace, but we, so far, we've been blessed with Granite Trail Water, so. And the evaporator, I think if we take a look at that, that just takes a portion. Do it all, but it'll take a portion of the leachate. We'll line up something in Greenville County and go take a look at it and understand more about their operations but it's, treatment plant, these small cities, Lord knows, it is just about out of their reach to operate treatment facilities. But certainly get some prices on that.
It'd probably be just about our reach to do it too, wouldn't it?
Or,
It would probably be just about out of our reach to do it as well, wouldn't it?
yeah, to maintain it, operate it, it would be a heck of an undertaking.
The other operation we could do is transport it. In tanks and transport it. We know what that cost would be.
I've looked around just to try to figure out, and I don't know of a plant around in our general area that would even be willing to accept our materials that's large enough to even take it in. Grand Strand Water, they own most of this area. I don't know where we find a place to take it to.
Wilmington has a reverse osmosis plant.
And the trucking cost to Wilmington would be, an hour each way minimum. Take about 8,000 gallons a truck. We do 60,000 a day. That'd be 10 or 12 tankers every day. That'd be a hefty number. Plus whatever the charge is for the water itself.
In case of an emergency, we should know that and have a.
Yeah, I
plan
have.
As a backup.
Yeah, matter of fact, I have, DES is providing that list to me. The first one that they gave me was industrial wastewater. It wasn't, or not industrial, it was residential, but they're getting me a list of the other. So that's what I mean. I don't know where there is any right now, but we do need to have that.
There's places that takes their leachate and recirculates, pump it right back in to the landfill, and that doesn't make good sense.
It
Because
wouldn't have
you're only concentrating your
But it's,
waste load.
that's going on in different places.
Okay.
They don't have the tanks, they don't have this, they don't have a sewer line closed.
Well, I think what we're doing and the money we're spending is much better than that, because if you continuously pump it back, you're just
Yeah, I know that.
making the process worse, so I wouldn't be wanting to do that.
No.
I think we're blessed at Grand Strand Water and Sewer, even though we're paying them. for helping us out with the situation, because they could have said no just as good as they said yes.
But it's subject to the testing.
Yeah.
And that's ongoing, and we could fail the test. We've yet to, have we ever had a problem? We've always passed our test.
And they've been a good neighbor to us when the 4-inch line from the tank to Highway 90. We were ready, thinking we were gonna have to pay for it. Fred and Grandson Water and Sewer stepped up and replaced the new line from the tank, that's from Highway 90 to Squirrel Hill.
And it cost us,
Pardon?
and it cost us how much? No cost to us,
No.
but there was a number that we had on what it cost them.
It scared me. I don't remember exactly what it is, but, it saved us a lot of money.
Tran, do they limit us to 60,000, or that's just what?
Their wastewater facility limits us because they have so many other industrial users that are also going in, that they have a limit on anybody that has a permit with them of how many gallons that they can discharge to them in a day. Because they have to be able to treat it and process it and clean it like it should be, so.
Do we discharge at specific times of the day or something like that?
Well, we'll come in the mornings, we'll get a reading, because we're required every day to take a pH reading and a temperature reading. And then we'll just turn on the tanks and let them run while we're here, and then shut them off before we leave. Normally, we run them about 3 hours, give or take, because they've got it down to a science. They'll turn it on and they set a timer. And they know exactly how long they can run those tanks where they won't go over 60,000 gallons.
What is the urgency? Has to be done within 5 months, or does it have to be done within a year?
I would say within a year, because we don't want to come in and have a major failure of a tank and there be 20 feet of liquid in it.
Even when we did the repairs, we were told to be prepared because the overlaps of the tank, they're metal plates, and they're attached with bolts and welded. And those were beginning to go when we did the refurbishment. And that's why we had to do the glass liner at the same time, to make sure there wasn't going to be any. But we were already told then that the tanks were advanced in age and to start planning for the replacement.
We plan now with the expansion, even with the permits that we have today, we got to stay in front of that power.
Right. We do need to stay in front of that and get it done correctly, because we don't want to have any spillage. We don't want to have that, and we need to do everything we can do as quickly as possible to make sure that doesn't happen.
Money put aside or in an account to the 5.2 million, or is that?
Yes, sir, we've got money in the designated for closure, it'll come out of that.
The bank could figure out the way to get it.
Assume that you will have staff check to see if there's any grants or anything that might be able to help us on that.
We haven't approached them on the ceiling, but Stephanie talks to them often about the testing we do for them, on tanks, on the, what's in it. We have to meet certain guidelines that they set, but, that's something that, we'll go out and talk to Christie about to see if there's any wiggle room for more. But, way they're going, I don't know. They may, we'll just have to talk to them about it.
Okay. Because if there are, a lot of times there are state, federal grants and things for these kinds of projects. And of course, if we can get some of those, that would cut the cost to us, which would be a good idea. I'd like for you to explore that anyway.
pH fluctuate a lot in those tanks.
It does not. It's always in the 7 range. It may go above 8 during the summertime when it's the hotter months, and then it comes right back down.
There are actual different, and I know because I've been working with this from family business, but with federal governments, anything that has to do with toxic waste, there are some grants I've applied for, and you can get the different things that actually cover up to 90% of the cost. Whether that would apply to what we're doing here or not, I don't know. But I've been working with that, so I know that they're there.
You check the possibility of, by the time that grant work starts out, once upon a time,
Yep.
there were 3 bears.
Yep.
It was kind of, hit and miss with grants, and most time it's just like borrowing money, with all the guidelines and everything, but we would shut them.
And they give you a time limit. One grant that I have, personal things like that, they'll give you 1 year to get that work done. And then that grant falls by the wayside, there would be an opportunity to file another one. But they would do that. And look under farm agriculture as well as what we're doing here with what this is, because that would also fall under toxic waste.
Takes 9 months to build it. Correct.
We need to get busy.
We need to get busy.
All we need to hear,
We need to get busy.
next step, and
If there aren't any other questions on the leachate treatment options, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Carlson so that he can talk about the methane utilization options and the new source performance standards.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Carlson, as Stephanie said. Casey Environmental, I've been working at the landfill here for about 25 years. I added it up. It was 2001. I first showed up out here with a different firm, but glad to be back, glad to be back on the board. So staff has asked me to put together a proposal or a presentation on air quality, regulations, where you stand, what the existing capital projects are working on, with landfill gas and air quality, and then look at possibly some other future uses of our gas. Our contract with Santee Cooper is ending in about 3 years, so it's never too soon to start thinking about that, looking at is what we're doing the best and highest use of the gas. So if you can hit my slide. So I'll start, anytime stop me, we can kind of dive into any of these topics as we go through them. So as I said, status of our air quality, the air regs, the gas system operation. We'll go through your capital projects, what are we looking at as far as our future air regulation applicability? We're right at the precipice of a different world, and we're fixing to go into it. If it's not this year, it's gonna be in several years. And I just wanna make sure everyone's real clear as to what that looks like. And then, like I said, what's our beneficial use of our collected gas? What are some options out there? So what is our current air quality status? So you have what's called a Title V Part 70 permit. There's the number. Essentially, you get an air permit just like a solid waste permit that covers everything that we do out here that emits some type of air emissions. The primary sources are the fugitive waste, which is essentially just, we have a big mound of waste, and so gas is coming off that. And so we model that and ensure that the state and the federal government understand what kind of emissions we have from that pile. We have an open flare that burns the gas, that has some emissions. We have various tanks, leachate tanks we just talked about are in that permit. There will have to be an air permit for the new tank. Diesel tanks, gas tanks, propane tanks, air backup generators for this building, grinders, everything we do, even to the point of we take a bulldozer and we push soil around, that produces some dust emissions. We have that included in the air permit. So everything's there. Every landfill has to have one of these type of permits if you're over a certain size. This landfill crossed that threshold many years back. And you are in compliance with this permit. That's very important. We are about to renew it. I think it's due April 30th to be submitted. The permit actually expires in November of this year. They renew them every 5 years. We don't see any issues with getting the permit renewed. When was the last inspection you had? Was it recent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was last year.
Last summer. So again, they come every year like clockwork. So again, no issues with the air permit. The bottom statement there is, we are, however, not regulatory required to operate our landfill gas system. So it has been voluntary for many, many years, ever since we first put it in back in 2001. And what we use it for is odor control, site safety. We reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and we've got some renewable energy production. So the authority has been spending a lot of money and doing the right thing for a lot of years, 25 years, to do all those things. And, could you have not put in a gas system? Probably not, based on odors. You probably would have had to at some point. But I think this is one of the very first landfill gas energy renewable projects in the whole state. And, you guys have done a great job with that. And so that's what we're doing. But that's going to change soon. And so, could be the next slide. I guess not stay on this one, but I'll talk about it in a second. That's going to change our voluntary status. What does our current gas operations look like? This is a picture of one of the generators when they were being built. Approximate gas flow rate right now is 700 to 1,000 standard cubic feet per minute. That's how I look at it. I know we talked about MMBTUs, but how we look at it on the collection side is standard cubic feet per minute of flow rate. Somewhere in that low 50% methane. You have about 120 gas collectors of various types, vertical wells, horizontals. Just about any place where gas can come out of this landfill, we try to harness it. And we use everything to our advantage. Santee Cooper, who is your current gas developer, they can maximum use 900 to 1,000. That's their full load. If of the 3 engines they've got, pedal to the metal, that's what they could consume. Rarely does that happen anymore. They're operating usually at a much more reduced load, just better on the engines, age of the engines, and just the availability. I think even right now, the engines are down for various maintenance, but somewhere between 350 to 700 is what they would demand of us. And I would say primarily we're meeting that demand when it's needed. It's a moving target, right? Some days we can't meet it, some days they can't take it. But most days we're able to meet that demand. And again, they have an air permit for their engines. Next slide. Here's an example of the wellhead. I threw that over fun. Next slide. All right. I guess I'm getting to compliance in a little bit. But current capital projects, what are we doing on that gas system? We're putting in some new gas wells. And so we have to replace our gas wells pretty frequently. We just talked about liquids. Liquids in landfill gas systems do not go well. It's all over. We have to deal with it. But when I have to pump liquid through my gas wells, which I have to, it'll clog the gravel pack. Imagine a big French drain that you're pumping liquid through gravel. Eventually the sediment and whatnot will clog that, and so we have to replace those. One big ticket item that you've probably been talking about in the Capitol is your blower flare station. The existing one is more than 15 years old, and just like we talked about the tanks, the usable life of it has gotten to a point where the technology is not great. The maker of that flare station even has a hard time working on it with us over the phone. Staff is working on numerous things to keep the thing going. So we have been working on getting that bid out, and we hope to have a new blower system in by the end of the year. Same thing with our compressors. We have 2 existing compressors. They're probably 7 or 8, 10 years old on the one that's the most recent. Again, same thing, just it's a good time to upgrade that. The building of a landfill, right, is a bunch of piecemeals, right? As you guys have been looking at, especially a new expansion and things, and you've just built a new cell, which is in a valley between the old West Hill and the Subtitle D Hill. When overlays get performed like that, you have to cover over parts of your existing gas system. And so staff does a great job of raising wells and moving things, but you only do that for so long before the gas system has to get replaced. And so we've had to do a significant modification to accommodate the waste filling. The way we always look at it is until the point that the gas system pays more than putting trash in the ground, right? We accommodate what they want. And most of the time with gas systems, you can do that. I think that starts to change a little bit when you get regulatory required to have a gas system. And then every time we decide that we want to take out a gas well, maybe that gas well is needed for regulation and I have to do some paperwork or do some things. So you start to get a little bit of decision points there. But for right now, we definitely are, whatever waste operations needs based on that filling, we're trying to modify. And so we're doing now, and I have a drawing on the next slide, but we're backing up the gas system to give operations a wide area to work in, nothing above ground, everything is available for them to do what they have to do. We're also, and that's the slide there, so everything in red essentially is getting taken out. All the red X's you see are portions of the gas system that we are removing or burying and making it useful to us as a buried component. If you're familiar with landfill, the valley up there is the valley that they're currently filling, and everything on the south side here of that drawing where you see the circles, those are all new gas wells that are getting installed. Some of them are brand new, some of them are getting replaced. There's a big red line there too, and that's a big new header getting put in. Go back to the last slide there, Trina, if you don't mind. The previous one, there you go. And so bottom two, force mains, lift stations, same thing with liquid, right? We have to try to get the liquid back to the tanks that you guys are upgrading, and we have 2 lift stations that help us do that a little more effectively, and so we're redoing one and adding a second one. So now back to the drawing. Any questions on that before I move on from the gas?
In 22 and 23, we increased the gas field by 2/3.
Yes.
I thought we would have created more potential to have power generation with Santee Cooper, but we really haven't changed that.
We're kind of staying stable. And so as we, that's a great point, as we expand, we're essentially holding ourselves steady. We did have a pretty significant bump. I think when we finally look at the revenue dollars you received in the presentation, you'll see some bump up there, and that's reflective of that gas system improvement. But all the red X's, a lot of those currently, because filled on top of the old East Hill expansion and this side, when that occurs, again, you have some diminished capacity out of your gas wells. If you can imagine, I only have a certain portion that I have perforated pipe, and where that perforated pipe sits in your waste mass zone, if you look at it from the side, that's where I can collect gas. When I add waste on top of that, I'm really not getting any of that additional gas. Okay. And so you did what you had to do. You've got to put extra waste up there. And what we did, unfortunately, is we just didn't collect any of that gas. That gas wasn't available to us. And over time, as the well is raised, it kinks a little bit. And of course, we're just not able to get more of that gas out. So that's the reason for this expansion. I would estimate that our flow rates after we're done with this will be steadily around the mid 1,200 to 1,600 range, which I think puts us right back where we need to be as far as the gas model. Okay. And we do gas models, so I guess I should probably level that. So there's a theoretical model, pretty theoretical. EPA puts these things out, and industry has tweaked them, but essentially it'll show us where we should fall within, based on the waste we have in place, based on the age of the waste and all those numbers. We can look at that model and say, what am I producing, and what does it tell me I should be producing, and what's that percentage? And right now we're a little lower, but only because we're in the midst of construction and we have a lot of things going on.
And we're taking sections of it out of service, basically.
That's right, exactly right. So just last week, we took out a big chunk out of service.
Don't we still produce gas in that
Yes.
area?
Yes.
What happens?
If we're not collecting, it goes to the atmosphere. So if we don't have gas system in those areas, it goes to the atmosphere. The good thing though is you have under collectors, right? So we tap into everything, like I said. And so we have gas suction on almost all of your leachate collection systems. So when I say that is, when we drive around out there, it's not an immediate, effect to the atmosphere. We're sucking it, and the suction will come from a different zone. There are definitely areas that we do need to get gas system in, and we're working diligently to do that now. But it does rebalance itself, if that makes sense. And so you do have more areas where you're pulling it from.
How often are we having to flare off?
You do every day. Every day we flare. Every day we flare. Santee Cooper I don't think ever has been able to take 100% of our gas. So we're always flaring. Just some days we're flaring a lot more than others. Yeah.
But
To
actually,
answer your
what
question,
you're saying, a lot of what we're doing is voluntary. We do not have to do all of that, and we're going above the regulations and beyond that.
Correct.
To take care of not only of that, but the future, and to make sure that we don't have any problem.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Because that's what I would like to do in everything we do, go beyond whatever the rules and regulations are, to make sure we're meeting what we need to be doing. And from what I understand from DHEC, we are in every facet here. Thank you.
Thanks. To answer your question, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Yes, you answered my question.
Okay.
I'm not sure I understand why I thought what you said it to them, but yes, yes.
Well, if we go back to the drawing, Trina. So those green triangles, those are all wells that we're burying, but we're still having them online. So those are to your point of, yes, we're covering it over, but we thought about the fact that we need to collect out of that waste area. We can't just abandon it forever. And so we wanted to make sure we collected from those. So there's pieces of this design that we made sure that we are collecting that gas as best we can. There really is no other suitable, feasible alternative to let somebody take a giant compactor and dozer and just push mounds of trash over these areas without taking a second back and saying, okay, you can have it for a while, and then I'm gonna come back behind you and poke gas wells in it. We can pull from the bottom, we can bury some componentry in there, but it's just difficult. And so that's just the realities of dealing with landfill. So, and we did have a meeting with Chris Calhoun to talk about operational filling, and that was one of the things we talked about was how best can we do both? Can we get waste in the ground at the right elevations and right areas, and also make sure that we don't just without thought force us to discontinue or disconnect parts to the gases that we need, because not only does it reduce odors, it helps the environment, plus we're getting money off this gas, right? And so we want to make sure we do all that at the right possible way. Next slide. All right. So this one is kind of a key one to look at. This is your future air regulation. So we have an air permit, we're voluntary at this stage, but what is going to happen to us? So we cannot avoid these regulations. You know, we're gonna be a landfill for a long time. And so these regulations are gonna finally catch up with us. It's not yet though, well, they read it is, but I'll tell you in a second. So the first two there, triple W and triple X, are the key regulations in NSPS. You'll hear that talked about a lot with landfills. Are you in the NSPS? And so you can tell people, no, I'm not fully in the NSPS. But those two, triple W and triple X, pretty much form the backbone of what we have to deal with. They go into everything that we deal with on the landfill gas system, from they force us to produce more reports, they have specific designs that we have to follow, and everything we've built out here so far meets that design. They've got testing of the flare stations, you've got monthly monitoring that has to be performed. There's all kinds of activities that we must do to meet those regulations. Second bullet there is the NESHAP, which is the National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants. That goes even a little further. So this is hazardous air pollutants are things like, you know, benzene and the toluenes and all the really minor but very nasty pollutants that can come out of landfills. And so that regulation is Quad A. And so it's very similar to the other two, just goes a little bit further. And those go hand in hand. And when you do get to that point, those regulations will get written into your Title V air permit. Third bullet is NMOCs. And so what the federal government did many years ago is said, how can I form a baseline that determines applicability to those top two regulations? And what they came up with is, let's make a test that is all the organic compounds in your landfill gas except methane, because methane is our biggest compound, right? It's 50 to 60% of our gas, and they don't want to penalize us based on methane. So they said, okay, let's remove that, and everything else that's an organic compound that would not be things like oxygen, CO2, CO, nitrogen, what is that concentration? And then if I multiply that times your landfill gas emissions rate, that gives me a tons or a megagrams of mass of, let's just call it bad stuff, the nasty emissions coming off my landfill. And what is that level? And then let's make some thresholds. And if you're over those, then we want to make you non-voluntary, and you have to put in a gas system, because by collecting the gas and burning it, I destroy the methane and the non-methane organic compounds to a level of, let's just say, 99.7%. And if I use it in an internal combustion engine, I'm destroying it by 98%. So by using the landfill gas in any way that combusts it, I reduce my emissions significantly. Now, I do produce a few emissions. I produce some sulfur dioxides and some byproducts of combustion, but these emissions, which are really bad, I reduce them significantly. And so the new limit is 34 megagrams per year. The old limit was 50. The new regulation, their triple X up there and the Quad A, reduced this threshold. This came out during the Biden administration, and so we're now lower. And we just did our 2026 NMOC calculation, and we are now at 34.07. And this is why staff wanted me to come talk about this today, was you know, we've been talking about this for a while, but we're now over. And this is based on, you know, that theoretical model, well, back up, not theoretical, the EPA has a set model, everything is in there, and based on that, we're now in. Now, I say the clock starts on 1:30 because we have until January 30th, 2026 to actually submit the report that says this, and once that report goes in, then your clocks start. There is, however, a way to stop the clock and reset the clock, and staff, and we're looking at this, about doing a updated Tier 2 NMOC test, and we have one planned here in the first quarter to be able to try to keep the NSPS out. So go to the next slide. I think I have yeah, here we go. So what does this retesting look like, and why is this important? Is that our current concentration of those NMOCs on our last test that we did in November of 2021 is 144 parts per million. And that's pretty low. The government makes you use 4,000 if you have no other testing. And so by us, 144, we naturally have a pretty low NMOCs. And what I've always taken that to mean here is that the beach is not very industrial, a lot of food waste. And so you will see that number if this landfill were located in Oklahoma and we had drill tailings and all kind of stuff going in the landfill, I've seen that number be 1,044, which is significantly higher and much harder to stay under the NSPS. So 144 is probably one of the lowest I've ever seen. Like, you are a very low NMOC producer, which is great. However, we need to be even lower. And if we get to 142, which is just 2 ppm lower, we can actually delay our applicability by 1 year. And if we can get to 140, it goes out 2 years. And it's amazing on that concentration how sensitive that model is, because our waste intake and history is set. Now, what could affect this? If the landfill ended up taking, I think I projected 2 to 5% annual growth year over year. If they took significant more, then obviously that goes into the model too, because the model is built based on how much waste do I have, and then how much gas is coming off that waste, and then you multiply this concentration times that to get to that NMOC level. So we're so close on the concentration, which is why I think it justifies the cost of the test, which is, you know, $30,000 or $40,000 to do this test. So it's not a cheap test to do, but I think it will delay millions of dollars of upgrade work that needs to happen at some point, and we're working on that. But to start it as quick as I think we have to start it if we did not pass this. Now, again, no guarantee. We can go out there and get 344 because we're testing the gas that's here. I will say that we've been pretty successful over the years on testing. And so, you know, I'm as optimistic as I can be that if we do it, you know, we have as good a shot as any to try to get that number lower. But again, it's not guaranteed.
We should run the test another anyway. Question.
Yes, sir.
You do your test, is that a one-time test, or is that over a period of time that you average?
It's a one-time test. We'll do it over 2 or 3 days. And essentially, you take your whole landfill that's applicable, and it's all waste greater than 2 years old, and we'll go in there and take samples from all those areas and then combine those samples, and the lab does its thing, and it comes back with that concentration.
You do sample in the morning, afternoon, night?
We sample anytime. The best time, however, is cold, and so that's why we want to do it as soon as we can, because definitely cold is a little less emissions. So. Any other questions about this testing?
So you think because where we are now, which is below that, that's what the test would probably do? You just don't know that. You don't have
Yes, so right now, if we choose not to test, right, we'll submit the letter saying we're over, and now what happens, it's a 30-month clock starts on the date that we submit that letter, and that then, at the end of that 30-month clock, we are now NSPS. We have to be fully up and running, and so I'll go to the next slide there, Trina, and see if I have any. So here are some things that we'd have to do. So if we did nothing, the do nothing option is this, which is July 30th, 2028, we are applicable, which means we have a lot of things to do before this date and after this date. And so before this date, it's build out this gas system in all areas that have waste that's older than, say, 3 to 4 years, which is a good amount of area. And I think we budgeted, what, 4 million, 4.5 million, something like that, over the next couple of years. We had that in the budget, assuming that we can't get ourselves out. And again, there's no guarantee we can't, right? We're trying to just push that out another year or two, but at some point we have to do that. And with that comes what's called an NSPS design plan, which is a technical report that goes to the state, and that shows them how we plan on managing and building out this gas system over the life of the site. You've also got to consider your end user, the plant. Santee Cooper will have to do a few things to get themselves ready once we go in, because now the gas we are required to burn it and manage it properly. And so they're probably already doing these things, but giving us more data, making sure they're doing their things properly. We will have to monitor monthly, which I think we do pretty well now, but there's additional testing, pumped work. Imagine, today, just as we talked about, we're able to remove some gas wells for operations. We could not do that as easily under the NSPS. We would have to work through the channels, get a permission, in many cases, keep the well there until it fully dies and something happens to it. And then within 120 days to 150 days, based on what the regulation is, replace it. And currently, we don't have that issue. And that's a big cost on managing an NSPS system is, yes, there's a mechanism there for removing a well, but if that well was in that design plan, and I as an engineer, I said, you need a well right here to control this area of waste, I now take it out, I only have 3 months to put it back in. And so I've got to go back and get a drill rig back in here or do something to get that well back online, and that's something you don't have to do with right now, and that's a significant cost. Let's see, the surface emissions, the fourth bullet down on monitor, that is something you do not do yet. But that is it's a neat test in that it's a test in which once a quarter, a machine, you walk with the machine and it actually very sensitively sniffs the gas coming out through the landfill. So it uses either a laser or it uses a thermal volatile analyzer, I don't know which style you use, but it will suck up the gas. And again, whereas my landfill gas meter that we typically use for the well field reads in percent methane, that reads in ppm, which is 10,000. So 10,000, ppm is 1%, and the regulatory limit is 500 ppm. So it's like 0.001% of what I could emit. So it's a very sensitive test. But when I say it's neat, in that that's a test that I think you can point to say, look, we have really good control of our gas, our emissions are excellent. And the reason I say satellite observations is if you want to look at something unique, there is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory has teamed with the EPA in the last couple of years, and they've started to fly almost all the landfills in America where they'll run a satellite or airplanes over it, and they're analyzing each landfill for emissions. And they're able by satellite to look at methane emission plumes. And what they're going to start to do in the future is essentially find landfills, and they've already started this, where if a landfill is regulatory required and they can see there's a giant plume of methane coming off that landfill, clearly there's something wrong. And so you're going to start to see more of that. This landfill, I can safe to say, has been pretty good, and so that's great. And I think that's something that the authorities should promote and look at, and as we do well on these things, which I'm sure we will, that I think that shows that you're managing your well very, very well. The fifth bullet down there, flares, so there's more data collection on the flare, the monitoring, there's also testing and reports and events, there's a lot of stuff. It's definitely the big boy area of landfill gas. And so again, we're going this way in 2.5 years if we do nothing. I think we have a good shot of pushing out a couple more years, but I would say probably by July 30th, 2030, 2031. I mean, in my wildest dreams, maybe we're out that far, but I would say somewhere between this date and that date is probably where we're going to end up falling. Any questions on what we have to do? Okay, next slide. So last piece here on this presentation is what are we doing with our gas? Because, landfill gas is a valuable resource, right? You've been using it with Santee Cooper since 2001. It's been a great project. We're the first in the state. That contract expires on 12/31/28. And you see there we have revenue that we've generated. Those are annual numbers based on, I got this from Jan, on what we've gotten from Santee Cooper for sales of your gas. And so those aren't bad numbers at all. And 2025 had a little bit of a bump up. I forget, what was that for?
That's that, Stephanie, you can probably tell us better, the one-time check that we get from Santee Cooper.
Yeah, that included that $92,000 check we got
Yeah.
right after we renewed the contract,
Okay.
in addition to what we had made annually, like the per month. We get 90 cents per MMBTUs for the amount of gas that they use to burn in their engines. They pay us just like we pay a service station when we fill up our cars with gas. Same principle.
So this is electric production sales, and it was state of the industry back in 2001, and for many years. I mean, back then, you know, if you pretty much, if you were a landfill of this size and you wanted to do something with your gas, you made power out of it. The other options were medium BTU pipeline, which means you had an end user down the road, and we wanted to pipe them gas, and we didn't do anything to it other than just maybe get it dry and get it to them, and that was they would offset their natural gas use, and so those really fluctuated with the natural gas prices, which for many years were rock bottom, very cheap for natural gas, so people went to the electric sales. Now, last couple of years, renewable natural gas has just taken off, and it has been ridiculous, and it's really reformatted the whole landfill gas industry. And what that is essentially you're purifying your landfill gas to pipeline spec, and then you're putting it in the pipeline. So you're selling it as green pipeline gas, but then, or I'm sorry, brown gas, but then you're applying for all the renewable credits available to you, which are these, especially these RIN credits. And if you go to the next slide, there you go. So that top bullet, so you're going, these RIN credits, these renewable information credits, renewable information number, I think that's what it stands for. And they're very, very valuable. And what you're finding is that the original RIN was formed because the government forced Exxon and BP and all these other folks to go in and say, okay, you have to offset a certain amount of your fossil fuel production of fuels for renewables, and that generated this credit system. But now what you're seeing is industries and colleges and universities and everybody is going in and saying, look, I want to offset my emissions. What can I do? And these RIN credits are a great way of doing it. And so what that has made this market to be much more robust. And it was already pretty good before, just with the fuel companies. I think what they've said is just now they're starting to see, you know, a couple years out where the capacity will be met with the RINs, with the fuel, but it still isn't there yet. And this is almost with every landfill in America going this direction. It's funny, I didn't put the slide up, but I had a slide where I showed from the EPA's landfill methane outreach program, and it shows, you know, what are the landfill gas to energy beneficial use projects being developed today and this year. And in past years, we had multiple colors from all these different types of projects. Today, it's one color, it's orange. Everybody. Waste Management, Republic, their share prices have gone up almost all due to RNG in the last couple of years. They've gone 100% this direction. So again, you have other options here. You could go back electric, 100%. I don't think there's medium BTU options really here. You know, one option I did want to bring up is you could go and take some of your gas and actually power that evaporator we're talking about, because Heartland uses an enclosed flare. We've designed some of their plants for them, and they take an enclosed flare and they heat that gas, that air, and it goes off, and that's what they use for the evaporating process. Most people who do RNG, however, would tell you, don't take any drops of gas you produce that's green, put it in the pipeline, and then just buy brown gas off of the pipeline to power your evaporator, because that way you'll make more money over here and essentially pay for the evaporator use. And that all can be talked about later. But the idea is, you look at the fourth bullet down, so there's a landfill in Louisiana that is a county site, parish site.
3 years ago.
You went down, yes. Yeah. Well, this is the one next door. So so you went to the Big Boy plant. You went to where the actual plant, that big site. This is the parish site next door, and the parish sends them gas. And so I got their numbers this past week. And so they're getting about a 10% royalty currently. Now, those people you went to visit, the River Birch people, they pay for everything on that site, gas system improvements, O&M, everything. So they get I would say a low royalty of 10%, but their 1,000 SCFM, they're getting $65,000 to $85,000 per month is what they're getting out of that royalty payment for $900,000 a year. And that's pretty standard. I mean, royalties are anywhere from 10 to 85% depending on your investment. I think the projections we did for you a couple years back were about 12.5% royalties. And the RIN credits are a tradable commodity, and so that numbers go up and down. And currently, they are a little bit lower than what they were a couple years ago, which is why I think these numbers probably were $1 million, $1.2 million for what that 10 to 12% would be back then. But they're still very, very close. And so again, somewhere the total project revenue, $650 to $850 per month, is the total project sales, everything all in at 1,000 SCFM. One of the interesting parts about RNG, and anything really, but RNG particularly, is that, you know, they do want to use all the gas, and that the plant, if it's built properly, can be built such that it's scalable up. So in other words, as you go from 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000, and I think the model I did for this site has you somewhere around 3,000, maybe a little more, at the full build out, which is the future big build out. Probably a little bit more than that. And so again, you probably 3 times that is what you would, see at some point in the future. Last bullet there, RNG plants take a while to build, right? It's the longest thing to do. 2 years is probably on the short end. I've seen some take 3 years, just because it just depends who you get. They have some places that can drop in a Connex box full of stuff and they can start it, but most of them are pretty involved processes. And so again, whatever the board decides to do, I think the idea is, you've got 3 years now. Santee Cooper or could be operating and should be operating all the way to the very end of their contract. And this RNG or other type of developer could essentially build separate to what they're doing, right? So that's you could be on a parallel path. One is still going and one takes off. Go to the next bullet there. And I think I just had a couple bullets here of some pros and cons, right? So if this is what everybody's doing in the landfill gas industry, why are they doing it, right? What's the benefits of RNG? Well, it uses 100% of your gas, and they want all of it. Like they are, and you will want to, if you're making pretty good money off of it, you want to put all of it in. It forces you to be very aggressive with your gas collection, meet regulations, air quality, odor reductions. I will say that makes my work very, very good, because we're asked to do a lot more at landfills because they want to get every drop out. And so I think from what is the best operations I can do at my facility, if I always have the mindset that I'm going to do the right thing anyway, but now I've got a gigantic financial and I've got a partner who's pushing me too, and everybody's lockstep in the same path of let's make this thing as best we can. I've never seen anything more than RNG to kind of develop the gold standard gas systems. There are some reduced emissions, definitely, because you don't use your flare hardly at all. They process everything through the plant, and there's less fugitive emissions. You can do almost anything you want. It's almost the Wild West when it comes to RNG. You met the people down there in River Birch. That's one option. You've got a billion options out there as far as self-developing, partnering at any level, investment, full third-party ownership where you just get a royalty. Everything's out there. With the future expansions, like I said, if you're going to have some higher flow rates, there's potentially more money. And then the last bullet there was one that I've always liked, which is I've always felt like that, especially a municipal operation should use these kind of projects as an engineering science, kind of a cutting-edge technology tie-in. I just see you guys somehow partnering with Clemson or South Carolina or somebody and saying, look, because
Santee Cooper is a state agency.
yes,
They should be doing it.
they should now, yes, because it's such neat technology, and you think it would be something that the authority could use with that. And so I threw that in there just to kind of get you thinking about that. But I think this next iteration should be, and I know you do tours right now, but there should be something there that can be done. And the last one is, of course, what are the drawbacks, right? Big plant, big emissions, noise, people over there. Usually the plants take, like I said, you saw a very big plant in Louisiana. That was about as big as they come. Most of them are smaller than that, but still, there's some issues there, right? The aggressiveness has a double-edged sword, because now you have to be aggressive, and that just takes a lot of extra effort, cost, money. I said there, don't recommend letting the developer fully manage your well field or expansions. I think the authority should always retain control.
If they're in control, then we're not getting the best out of our field, because they have another objective. They're
Exactly.
trying to meet different targets than we're trying to meet, which is to get the gas out, and eliminate the impacts.
Well, and just like Craig would say, there's too many times where you are a landfill. Your goal is still, even though this is great, your goal is still, I'm a landfill, and that does not always jive with, I'm a gas developer, right? And so you have to always consider that I'm a landfill first, I have to deal with my liquid, and so sometimes I gotta make the tough decision and go, I'm sorry, I gotta take these wells offline or deal with it, get credit and figure it out, but I gotta do that because you're a landfill first. Yep.
Output and maintaining that output.
That's right. And so, and if the developer has your well field, they don't think that same way, right? They could say, sorry, and then you're fighting it. So I think if you just, those expectations are up front. Look, we are a landfill first, we will do whatever we can, but yet we're gonna balance this appropriately. Protect this gas system operation. So again, you wanna spend a little more time on that, which again, has some operational impacts. But like I said, landfill first. Revenue is subject to market fluctuations, right? So could the RIN credit market absolutely. And then there are way smarter people than I am if you want to dive into the RIN credits and the options, and there are brokers to talk to, there are developers to interview. It's so much out there. Again, I've just given you 5 bullets here, but I would talk to more people about that. And then you're dealing with somebody who's not Santee Cooper. You have had the best developer ever, Santee Cooper. They're so nice, easy to work with. They are a great company, and then you partner with the right people up front.
Definitely coming up of the equipment. David,
Yeah, yeah.
it's gonna be completely replaced.
Yeah, oh, yes, soon, exactly right, the engines, yes. And so, higher cost facility, more money, higher expectations. So again, you have to go in that with your eyes open that, these are things that if the plant costs $40 million all in, or $25 million, there's push to get these things done, so. And I think that's probably my last slide. Is that my last slide? Yep, thank you. So, any questions about options for beneficial use, thoughts, RNG?
There's a good reason why it's the Wild West, because landfills produce a lot of gas.
Yes.
And it's targeted for a reason too, because the emissions are primary concern.
One thing, we talked about a couple other sites too, is, you can become like a hub a little bit. I've always thought landfill should maybe become like you're a regional facility for the whole benefit of the whole area. But agricultural RNG biogas is a big, also RNG producer, and it's actually, they make more money per unit of gas if you take a hog lagoon and you cover it with plastic, or a cattle lagoon and you make biogas out of that, because that gas is considered more environmentally friendly, right? They have a higher credit, or a RIN credit. So what you could do is, again, partner with somebody. I know there's a place up in Union County, in Monroe, that actually is working with farmers and covering their lagoons, getting the gas, and then they're trucking it to a facility to bump it in their cleaning facility and into the pipeline. And everybody makes a cut, but the landfill and the facility makes a cut too, I think. So, so again, there's options there for that. But again, you got 3 years, so you got some time, but it goes away quickly, so.
Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
Do we actually have time, all right? If we have to meet the regulations in 30 months, all right, we don't really have a lot of time.
Not a lot. Again, if we are successful with the Tier 2 test, we get ourselves a little more time. And, our budget idea and the budget currently is set up such that we can expand and do what we need to do. Because just for odors and other things, we're already expanding. Nothing we're doing now would be something that an RNG plant would not like or want. There could be some additional, I think we did have in the budget a couple years out, assuming that we were gonna do an RNG plant. I think we had a chunk of money saying that, okay, now we've made that decision, we're within a year of the plant opening up. let's go ahead and throw more money at the well field just to make sure that it's getting us the best it possibly can. But, yeah, you're right, I mean, it's, 30 months is not long, and everything kind of seems to be tying itself into 3 years, so 30 months to 36 months.
But you're telling us that the more, I apologize, Robert. You're telling us that the more, what we're doing now for the odor and whatever is putting in more gas wells.
Yes.
And that will blend into what we will be doing in the future anyway.
Yes, I mean, yes, you have to put in more. I mean, again, regulatory-wise, you don't have to, but you are, right? Because
Right,
again,
and we want to because we always want to be above whatever they make us do. We have been and we want to continue to do that.
and I think from a flow rate, you know, we want to get back to that over 1,000 SCFM consistently. I think you would see a point where if we had no gas system, and I don't know when that would be, but fairly soon, you'd see a point where you start to see more odors coming from those areas that we would put gas system in. It is a safety issue at times, right? Because now, you know, pipes and things that we pull from would just have gas in them, and that gas could be dangerous to somebody, so.
Well, with that little bit of time, I think we need to start getting some idea of planning and where all that would
Well,
go,
decision time is shorter than
to
development.
do that and start planning toward that in the future in everything that we choose to do so that it'll be financially reasonable.
And like I said, there are a few developers that I'm sure if you sat them in here, they say, can tell you they can get it done in a year. You know, and the way the technology is, that could be true. There are some plants that are modular and things like that. The 2 to 3 year window, COVID, of course, you know, COVID and just the fact that every landfill is building these across the country, there's only so many membranes they can get. I think I heard somebody say recently that that's starting to get a little bit easier. And then I did see a presentation at a conference 6 months ago where a developer claimed that they had a proprietary process so they could get things going pretty quick. So again, I would still use we need 2 to 3 years to get this thing. And because again, even just bidding, right? To bid something out and talk about it, to your point, you know, you're looking at a year of just doing that. And now I'm down to 2 years before Santee Cooper's gone.
And some of the developers' proprietary processes that they say are great and wonderful, we found out they're not. And we don't want to be a guinea pig, we want to be above that. So I think we need to start looking at all of those things and what people have and what we consider to be the right box and who is correct and who isn't. And I would want to see someone's actually working to know that it is, not just them telling me that. Are there any of those operating near us?
Three Rivers has one operating right now. Lee County, I think, has, Santee Cooper's still there. I think they're going everybody's going RNG. I think Screaming Eagle, Lee County, Palmetto, Greenville. Doesn't Greenville County have one too? Greenville's got one, yeah. So again, there's several out there. Spartanburg is going that way. They still have an IC engine. They're going that way.
Yeah, because we would have to plan where that would actually go, the pipes and those processes here, and the property and go through those permitting channels as well.
At least there's one of these in Arizona, and that's not Giroux,
Arizona's a long way from here.
but it's closer to
Yes,
Giroux.
I don't want to go to
And
Jerusalem.
everything is Europe, doing all these great things, but let me say this. We know what we got to do short term. What we need to do is get with Chris, lay out next year's budget, what we look at, who we talk to, how we go about selecting someone, and then make a decision on what we do. I know 3 years is short term, but there's a lot more today. But every expansion, the more you got to do. So, it's good to know that what we're doing will tie in to the new company, whoever they are, and, I've always said, the magic box.
Yeah.
Here comes with the silver briefcase. Got 3 people with him. Scientists that invented it, a banker, a guy that used to go to the Lower Fair. Come on in, buddy. Step right up. But I think we got an idea. Chris has been involved in these other ones. Next 6 months is a big planning time to figure out how we do it, who's doing it, see them do it, and move on. Either yes, no. I like what he said now. A lot of companies that we talk to, listen to, want to have their hands on the landfill collection system. That's not to our advantage.
No, it isn't, and I don't care to see that.
No.
I think we need to do what we do. I've been to see some places where they have different things have been built in different counties. And I was not impressed with how they were handling it. And the people that had the landfill after a few years were not either. And whatever we do, we need to be responsible for, and we need to do it. We need to know what's going on.
Anybody have any objection to Danny's approach on this?
No, we need to map out our timeline.
Good enough marching orders for you? Chris, thank you very much. I appreciate that presentation. Any other questions on this subject? Okay, that's great. You want to take a break, or do you want to keep going? Keep going, all right?
I feel like this bulldozer and compact is gonna be a lot easier than,
I hope so.
gas.
Richie's shaking his head, no, it's not.
You all ready?
We're ready.
Okay, before Richie gets started, I told him I wanted to give a little, I guess, kind of background information on how, what he's going to be talking about impacts our budget. You hear us talk about when we put together our budget, it's capital budget, and we have an equipment replacement schedule. And what this equipment replacement schedule is just that, we buy a piece of equipment for $250,000, we're gonna depreciate it over 5 years. And so that's what shows on the schedule. It's depreciation for each year for the next 5 years. That's the money each year that we are going to put aside to purchase the replacement of that one piece of equipment. And when I say we're putting the money aside, it's actually in our operating budget. Everybody's department, you'll see depreciation. That depreciation figure that you see in the budget each year is that money that we're putting aside for the next piece of equipment. GASB only allows us to put aside it based on what we pay for it today. Not what it's going to cost us 5 years down the road, what it's going to be there today. Which is why you hear us talking about us needing a transfer to cover that gap of what we paid for it when we originally purchased it, but what we're going to be paying for when we depreciate it, or when we replace it. Any change we make to that schedule, if the next piece of equipment, we put it on there for 4 years instead of 5 years. Now that depreciation is going to be a larger amount. So that's more we need in our operating budget. That's more tipping fee we may need to cover that cost, that increase. So anytime we purchase something for more, we put it on there for less years. That's a big impact to our operating budget, because that's where that money comes from. It's coming from the revenue that we get off of our tipping fee. That's the only way we have to put that money into that equipment replacement fund. So there's not a set dollar amount per ton, because it changes every year based on what equipment we replace that year, based on, what we anticipate the next equipment costing us, those kind of things. So as he kind of starts explaining to you what he feels like is the best method to help our equipment needs out there, I just want you to understand, when he's gonna use the term, I can tell you right now, he's gonna say, the payment. He always says the payment. I always say, it's not a payment. We're not paying anybody but ourselves, but that's the way he always refers to it, as a payment. So I said, before you start throwing out this payment term, let me just give a little bit of background so that you understand how he says how one impacts the other. Like I said, so that's kind of my little background. If you have any questions, stop and ask him. When you hear him say payment, he's referring to that depreciation.
Because you're the
figure.
gatekeeper when you need some money, you need to pay.
Yeah. So, all right, Richie.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that Dan explained to him who sets that amortization,
Richie sets it.
the money, you base it on the cost of the original equipment.
That's right, that's what I said. Gatsby won't,
How's that set?
I just said, Gatsby won't allow us to put it aside, but based on what we currently purchased for, not what the future cost is. We can't, that's why any kind of difference, that's why it's so important when we have money available for a transfer. That's why we ask for it, to help cover that cost.
So in other words, we're not making that up, we have to go by certain guidelines.
Oh, absolutely.
And
And demand
that comes
isn't a
from us,
fact-
it comes
And
from
demand
us.
isn't a factor, and Richie's trying to satisfy the demand.
That's right, that's right.
Okay.
So the two most important pieces of equipment in landfill is the compactor and the bulldozer. We can't work without them. The manufacturer sets the limit, the life cycle is 10,000 hours. That's life cycle and warranty. They give us the option of, we pick the years. We've always picked 5 years because the operation budget can only make the depreciation payments that are in the budget, okay? So, the amount of hours we work every day, the landfill compactors and the bulldozers run sun up, sun down. When you run the numbers and look at the utilization, in 39 months, we're at hours, 10,000 hours. So, that machine gets parked, a secondary machine gets used to fill in the 21 hours to get to the 5 years. Make sense? So, what I'm asking is, we have a compactor in the budget, and we would like to buy a new compactor, not a reconditioned one, a new one. We want to put a maintenance agreement on it. We also have 2 bulldozers in the budget for this year, and we want to put them on a maintenance agreement. Those 3 pieces, we want to put at 4 years, because that best aligns with utilization. It's not perfect, but it'll be a lot better for operations. So what we are proposing is a $1.50 tipping fee increase. $1 will go to the compactor, which will give us 4 years and a maintenance agreement, and 50 cents will go to 2 bulldozers, 4 years with a maintenance agreement.
The easiest way to do it is to have a target that's targeted for one
We,
operation. You're targeting one factor to use a portion of our funds. Is that the best way to do it, or do we look at it systematic?
you can't, everything changes and not every piece of equipment across the board gets utilized the same. So we track everything every year, and the compactor and the bulldozers run the most. Okay? So by doing it the way we're doing it now, we have to have more equipment to do the same job. I'm trying to get us to the point of less equipment to do the same job.
Right now, we may need 6 compactors because we're gonna have to set one out, or one's gonna have to sit every so many hours to make up those hours. Whereas by shortening the life on them,
Soon we may have multiple sites for operating.
When I say, we don't run it for 39 months and park it, so we have a schedule.
right.
We run it one for a week, pull it out, put another one in, we have a rotation. So when one comes out, we're working on it, we're maintaining it, cleaning it, what have you. In my opinion and my recommendation, 4 years is where we need to be. So you could set a piece of equipment out there and just let it run, let it do its job. Instead of us paying insurance on more pieces and more fuel, we're making it work. We're good at making it work with what we have.
If you'd only buy equipment that operate on brown gas, we could solve 2 problems.
Any questions?
How many bulldozers do we operate at one time?
It depends on what we're doing, so you have one bulldozer pushing the C&D all day, you have one in solid waste pushing all day, you have one in yard waste pushing all day, plus you have two bulldozers, covering and grading. Now, the two machines that grade and cover, they don't have the same exact utilization, it's less. So it's not one size fixes all. We would adjust as we go, like next year, I'd like to come back and, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? We're always gonna move around, and like the next compactor, I may go back to a remanufactured at 5 years, because it'll be a fill-in for the couple of months on the new machine. You have to, we always change in what we do, and you have to be able to adjust. There's not one size. I don't wanna buy all brand new compactors, because we've been down that road before. We've been working on this for many, many years. We've just never been able to talk about it. It's never been a hot topic of how do we get the money to do what we need to do.
But even though you have this equipment, like I may have a car that its lifetime is, or my warranty is 100,000 miles. I may drive that car 300,000 miles. And I realize these are apples and oranges here, but just so you know, just because we do that 5 years or that number of hours, we're not gonna get rid of it. We would continue to maintain it until it got to a point that it was not financially feasible to do so.
So on a new piece of equipment, we would dump it, because a new piece of equipment with all the electronics in it, you don't want to own it after 10,000 hours. Now, 8 years ago, when I asked to use proposed a remanufactured equipment that we fix in-house, that worked out well, worked out fine. Now it's time for a change. Let's take some weight off of the shop of maintaining, because we do all the maintenance in-house on that, and have an outside source like we used to do, take care of it. And be able to have less equipment being in service in the lifespan of what we purchased the warranty on.
What do you do when one of those dozers or compactors catches on fire?
We have what I call them R machines. We have machines that we repair ourselves that we usually keep past the 10,000 hour range, that we keep maintaining. Because we learned 9 years ago, 3 brand new machines, all 3 were broke. And we took one of our machines that we maintained, put it back in service, and that's what we compacted with, because those 3 brand new machines, they were down for a little bit, and we were at the mercy at another vendor. We in-house could not take care of them. We didn't have the equipment to fix them. And back then, I told you, this will never happen again. I won't let that happen. We have to be able to take care of our own. That's why I asked to go to the remanufactured ones, that we can take care of them. If something happens, we have the parts, we have the personnel, we can fix it, so we're still operational and in compliance.
How successful have you been to find the sole source to back up the equipment you're purchasing? You were having multiple vendors you had to deal with because the equipment had different sources in that piece of equipment. Warranties you were getting were multifaceted because there were pieces of that equipment supplied by different vendors.
Correct.
How successful are you getting to one sole source to warranty the whole piece of equipment as a whole?
Going in this direction with the warranty agreement, it doesn't, as long as we don't put it on fire or self-inflicted damage, it doesn't, it's fully covered. So it brings our expenses down. We can control it a little better. It may sound like a little money up front, but in the long run, it's gonna stabilize our costs in the maintenance.
That was one of your goals.
That was one of my goals, because now it seems like, well, I know it's our machine, but it's Bo's pump. We're not covering his warranty, so now we have to eat it and fix it. We're trying to get away from that.
That's the problem with the remanufactured equipment.
Not necessarily, that hasn't been the weakest problem, it's been other vendors.
Something back to the John Deere motor.
So years ago, we always had warranty on equipment plus a maintenance agreement, double insurance policies, I call it. And I didn't see the significance back then of having two, so I got rid of it because the warranties were getting paid no matter what. As things have changed and nobody wants to pay for warranty, now I see a need to bring it back. I want to cover ourselves, so if something fails, it's not our problem. It's the manufacturer's problem.
Right.
Just paying for more insurance, really.
Okay.
Question, if you are 10,000 hours, you sell it back to them, or they can buy it back from you?
Good question. So I look at it, we are not in a business to sell equipment. So as part of purchasing a new equipment, they have to give us a buyback price. So I can see how they really think of their equipment. Most of the time, it's extremely low. Some extremely high. So if we stay within 5 years, 10,000 hours, you're gonna get X amount of dollars, a check written back to finance. So we put back into the depreciation fund.
And can you look at that and say this is too low, I don't wanna sell it back to them and sell it through government?
Yes, you can. But we take it anyway, so we know what we owe with the equipment and what we think it's worth.
Right.
Yes, 100%. We have that option. We can keep it, sell it back, or sell it on our own.
However we choose.
That's right. We're still in control of it.
That's part of your evaluation when you get a bid.
Also with that, we did it years ago, we haven't done it in a while, and I don't know how I feel about it. We always put, if a machine went down for more than 5 days, it was a penalty of $25,000 a day, I believe, we put in there. They would have to pay us, plus they'd have to bring us a machine on the 6th day of equal size, which, that's pretty tough to do, but it puts the manufacturer's feet to the fire of, if you're gonna commit to the solid waste authority, you better be all in, because it's gonna cost you. They have to have compactors to run, so I'm pretty confident going back the way we were, it's in our best interest.
You thinking that $1.50 will keep you in the ballpark so you don't have to be worried about it? You don't have to be coming back to the board asking for more or whatever?
I feel confident the $1.50 is there.
For now, absolutely. And of course, as we see that the cost significantly increases in this equipment, absolutely. It's something we're gonna have to evaluate on a year-by-year basis. But to get us started in the right direction, that's what we will plan to, if the board's okay with it, we'll plan to budget that. Like I said, with understanding, we're just starting our budget process. This is just a beginning step.
That's just the two top pieces of equipment.
That's right.
What do you see further down?
We're not as pressed as hard. There's a couple other things I'd like to look at, now that I know that you're hoping to look at it.
Oh, absolutely.
But in my mind, compactors and bulldozers, we can't run without those. Everything else to me is secondary. That's the most important. I will ask, since you mentioned that, Dan mentioned at one of the meetings about transfer of money, and there was $2 million to put into the equipment replacement. I would like us to consider putting some of that money into the depreciation fund, because if you look at a new compactor, the last one we bought, it's $850,000 more. The spread is huge. That would definitely help. At least consider.
That was part of the consideration you had already done on the recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Made.
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you, the manufacturer and the salesman, we had 3 yellow ones broke down on top of the landfill. We had an old blue. we were down on the yellow manufacturer and the salesman and everyone. Peoria knew us by first name. One had the nerve to tell me, well, you're using it on landfill, a compact. We didn't buy it to work in the garden. I mean, the compactor, where do you run one? Garden. But this buyback, somebody's selling Timex. In the 5 years, he don't think much about it. If he knows the equipment, know it's been maintained, if they maintain it, replace parts, hard to get parts, and they know what the equipment's worth. And they put that buyback in there, and a lot of times that buyback makes the deal for us. Especially if you put in there that if it's down for so many days, you got to bring us one or pay up. So this is a great system.
And they're not really anxious to put another piece of equipment on the landfill that they're loaning to us.
Keep the other one running.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was really a good thing you did, because that would, if they don't think they can maintain that and continue to pay you that, and their equipment will not run, they're not gonna do that.
And
Because
it's a
they're not
known
gonna pay
quantity,
that kind of money.
agreed to it amount.
And I would imagine by now you have a good idea which brands work better than others.
We do, and to me, I look at the money as the bottom. I look at how it performs, how fast I can get somebody here to fix it, parts availability, no matter what, we can all agree. Compactors have to run all day, every day, no questions asked. I don't tolerate, oh, I don't have a guy here, it's gonna be a couple of days, we don't have the part, that doesn't work for me. We have to be the first and only priority for a vendor when we make a deal with somebody. So we kind of know who we like to use. Are they the best? Yeah, I mean, but they've had their problems, they all do.
Yeah.
But we have a pretty good idea where we want to be. Okay. Who's gonna shoot me?
We're the only ones that could shoot you, go ahead.
Saturdays. Yeah. Saturdays. Not most of it, I'm sorry. Bulldozers and compactors don't have enough material. You're running. They're running, but they're not doing nothing.
They're using up the hours that.
Yeah. That's part of the utilization we look at. I can see they're just parked, but they're still running, waiting for trucks. That would help a ton, but that's above my pay grade. I'm just telling you, the equipment is running, whether it's compacting trash or idling, to me, it's still running.
It's still
wearing out.
running and we're
It's
losing
taking-
money and time.
Production and.
What's your suggestion? I don't care about the middle part. What's the answer?
Is it really worth the cost of being open on Saturday? What it costs us for the fuel, personnel, and equipment running?
That shouldn't be a hard question to figure out.
Obviously, it isn't. Why are we running on Saturday then?
They have 6-day pickup, all of the
Trying
haulers.
to be
A nice guy?
good to the people that work on Saturday. For the little home. I think we'll cut it back to include it. Cut out so many hours. But foot. And the cost, it's not cost benefit from compacting, me sitting there on Saturday. Run a truck, compact it, and wait 30, 40 minutes.
I think we need to look close on Saturday.
Well,
Their problem-
We need to give them enough time ahead of time.
Their problem are holidays.
But otherwise, close on
Their
Saturday.
problem are holidays. They need Saturdays to make up for holidays because there's at least 12 a year.
Well,
We're
I hate
open
it,
on
but
holidays, so.
We're open, but they're not.
Well, it also depends, the other component to the use on Saturday goes back to recycling centers as well. Because they're all open on Saturdays, so them even with the half day being open, it's crucial to operations when it comes to the county recycling centers, to be able to keep that waste moving.
I didn't mean to close the recycling center.
No,
I mean here.
No, that's what I'm saying,
We just wouldn't have any pulls to here on Saturday.
and that would be a problem on the county's recycling centers.
Unless they had more trucks,
That's their choice.
so Monday through Friday.
That's their
Can,
You talking about the haulers having more trucks?
The hauler for the recycling center.
Right,
They need to have more trucks.
that's right.
I mean, if we're closed Saturday afternoon, they drag a box in, put it over yonder on our property, and Monday or Tuesday, they'll dump it and get it back. That's been the issue with the recycling centers, and that,
If you shut down Saturdays, Mondays would be hell. They pick up on Saturday and park them on.
well, let the equipment run all day on Monday.
I think the trucks
Stay
do
up
really have a
with it.
ballgame.
Well, I'm just throwing it out for this discussion. I was just throwing that out for this discussion.
Yeah.
But we need to understand that Mondays will be hell.
And we know when those times are. Day after Christmas, cardboard, recycling center. And now we found out the day before a hurricane, everybody brings garbage. They used to, they go buy milk.
Right.
Now it's,
They bring garbage.
Homer, go take that refrigerator off that front porch, there's a storm coming.
you want to boil it down to is the cost versus the benefit,
Right.
all right? And be quantified.
And,
There's a benefit to having it open.
yeah, and I think that's where you weigh it out. He's looking at hours. He's looking at the run time. He knows today that it, he already knows how much we run a piece of equipment. They can look at the board and tell if the machine's running or not, or idling. He knows those times. He knows the busy times. He's just noticing through this process that Saturday ain't very busy. Material coming in, but the machine is putting those hours on it, and not benefiting.
Right. And when the machines were a whole lot cheaper, you might could eat that. But when you're going from 500,000 to a machine for $1.5 million, it doesn't come anywhere close to being worth that.
And that's something that's for certain that we don't have to make that decision in here today. Something to think about when we come up with the budget and start talking about these things. Then we'll be able to make a decision. The right way, the wrong way, the political way.
Or the
I
hard
don't
way.
think this board,
Huh?
I don't think this board can figure it out anyway because we don't know or truly understand the working relationship, as Esther said, between her pools and how many compactors and how many loaders. I don't think this board knows enough of the formula to make a decision on the check. Somebody gotta bring, as far as I'm concerned, gotta bring me some more information.
And really, Mr. Jones, we don't know that because the bids on the street now for the recycling center
Well,
pulled.
I understand that. Is it possible to put it in that bid that they could not make pulls on Saturday?
It's too late.
Too late?
The bids are opening,
But we-
happened this afternoon.
It's too late.
And the bids did indicate that we would be open on Saturdays.
Okay.
But we are bidding it to where, we've broken it down to where the open top, you can bid on that, you can bid on the garbage, or you can bid on all of it. I'm thinking that, you come up with that, thinking that somebody locally that, got roll-off, that'll get that, and if they split it up, I think they'll be able to pull it during the week. Restore.
Why don't you put your group together and bring us back the rest of the information, and we'll consider it and try to deconstruct it or whatever, but we're not going anywhere today with it.
Like I said, we don't need, this is information getting ready for the budget.
And the convenience centers are a different operation because we're satisfying a client, not ourselves.
Still kind of foolish to run a piece of equipment that there's hours on it. It's not profitable for us. We're going backwards instead of going forward.
And our client wouldn't want us to raise it enough to take care of
Well,
our costs.
that's what you,
'Cause
that's
what
what you
we-
negotiate. This is what it will cost them.
They might want an opportunity to save that money.
I think what we're saying is not, we're not saying how long, we're saying, tell us what, give us some information.
That's right.
The board is receptive to discussing. No commitment one way or the other. All right, is there anything else on the subjects that we had on our agenda for today?
Other than one comment I'd like to make, obviously, we will be continuing to do this. Because up until this point, we haven't gotten legislature or political going along with us, even though I've talked with them on a personal level, state, local, and federal, and on a board member level. Until we get the political people to stop some of the things coming in here or things we can do, we will continue to have to do it because the public generates it. Therefore, we're gonna have to do it. And if it keeps on, when we're dead and gone, our grandchildren will still be asking for permits to do this kind of thing until we have the political will to do the right thing they should do with the recycling. Therefore, we're gonna continue these discussions, and from now until immortality, if we can't get the political will to do the right thing, we'll be asking for more permits. So we're gonna have to have more money and more budgets to handle it. Thank you.
Yes.